Hello Tech Pros, episode 264.
I think Steve Jobs have a very good quote. In your life, you only get to do so many things, and right now, we've chosen to do this, so let's make it great.
Welcome to the podcast where we explore the opportunities, challenges, and anxieties that technical professionals and techpreneurs face when building their career, building their products, and building their business. This show is about the people behind technology and the mindsets and skill sets they developed that led to their success. You can learn more about this podcast and our guests at hellotechpros.com and about overcoming social anxiety at anxietynerd.com. All right, let's get started. Hello Tech Pros, this is Chad Bostic, and I'm excited to introduce our featured guest today, Kamil Rudnicki. Hey Kamil, how's it going, man?
Hi, it's very nice. I'm very glad to be on your podcast, so I can't wait to talk with you.
Man, I cannot wait to talk to you too. It's been a very crazy January. I know this episode is being published in early February. Well, yeah, because today is the end of January. So this has been a crazy year already. 2017 has turned out to be amazing and crazy, and I am just happy to talk to you, Kamil, because I know that you're going to bring some peace and some high quality entertainment and high quality value to this show today, which I need in my life and I need in my career because there's just a lot of craziness going on right now. So I'm super excited that you signed up and were able to join us today.
Yeah, that's very nice. Thanks.
Cool. So let me introduce you to the audience. Kamil Rudnicki is a programmer, entrepreneur, and founder of Timecamp, and he is a student. He's fascinated with the usable psychology of self-improvement, business philosophy, meditation, and a good and meaningful life, as well as decision-making and possibly what the future might bring. Kamil is an introvert, an INTJ introvert, and also a minimalist. And Kamil, I completely empathize with you on being an introvert, man. I don't know if you heard my episodes about social anxiety, but my introversion in the past was so bad. It was beyond introvert. It was a social anxious person. So I was somebody who could not have a podcast. I could not be on a podcast. I could not even talk to a stranger. I was so nervous and so fearing judgment that I would never ever have a conversation with anybody.
Oh, okay. So I think that being introverted is not helpful at all to making a podcast. It is very good move, because it makes you a better person, I think.
Yeah, man, I completely agree. You know, I've made a lot of progress in facing my social anxieties over the last 15 years. Just a ton of progress from moving from a software developer role into a manager role. That was a big step. Okay. From getting into a relationship, getting married, and having a child. That was a huge step, right? All of these things in my life have slowly allowed me to kind of spread my wings and evolve and become a better person and become a little bit more extroverted. I think I'm still an introvert because I do get energy from solitude. I kind of rest and relax when I'm reading a book or playing a video game by myself, or just like taking a walk or a nice run by myself, so I get that energy back. But the podcast has been amazing because I've interviewed, let's see, this is episode 264 that we're recording. So I've interviewed 260 different people, and my voice has reached 100,000 downloads now. And so I feel very, very grateful to have amazing folks like yourself join me on the podcast so that I can practice a little bit of extroversion every now and then.
Yeah, that's very nice. But I know that this can be sometimes being not yourself is pretty hard, because you have to put energy to make something. For example, for being extroverted, you must put some energy. For example, I'm talking to you right now, and I had to put some energy because this is not my default condition to be. And but this is development. I improve myself by going outside my comfort zone. So this is very good.
Man, somebody explained it to me like it's a muscle, right? So extroversion for us introverts, it's like an unused muscle. And when you use it, when you are extroverted, when you go to a party, when you speak up in a meeting, when you talk on a podcast, when you say hi to a stranger on the street, right? That takes a lot of energy to do that. It takes a lot out of you, and you feel exhausted at the end of the encounter because it's like, oh my gosh, I did something. Like if you're not a runner and you go run to the end of the block, forget about running a marathon, forget about running a mile, just like running to the end of your street. You can get very, very winded doing that, very tired if you are not in shape, if you don't use those muscles. And so for folks like Kamil and folks like myself, when we do something other than our natural tendency, when we try to speak or have a conversation with random people, it saps me. So how does it feel to you when, like, at the end of this podcast, at the end of the 30-minute episode, when we get off the air, how is it going to affect you?
Oh, this is a good question. I think that I will tell my friends that I was on a podcast. I was making a podcast with Chad Bostic, and this will be very nice experience. I think this is something that will improve my self-confidence, because I will be confident that I can do this, and this is definitely helpful for me, and I hope that this will be also helpful and inspiring for audience that are listening to us. So
awesome. I'm positive. I'm absolutely positive that it will be very inspiring and very helpful, because sometimes, when I listen to other podcasts, there are some times where I listen to a podcast and they've got on, some huge entrepreneur that everybody knows, like Simon Sinek, or someone like that who's written lots of books and very famous, right? And I can't really relate to these people because I just don't get them, right? They're so far in their progression that then I'm like, wow, he's amazing. Like, he wrote 57 books by now, and he's been on all kinds of TV appearances. And what have I done? I'm not that, definitely. Right? But when I hear somebody who sounds like me, or is in a similar place to me, but they're reaching out and they're doing something above and beyond what they thought they were capable of, then it gives me inspiration. I think, man, that's awesome. I love talking to Kamil because he makes me inspired that I want to do better for myself.
Oh, yeah, you are so right, because I can tell you a story about, because in Timecamp, we have a couple of investors that invested in our company, and we have different type of investors. We have one big company. It was the biggest company in Poland that was making software, thousands of employees. And when I was talking to this investor, I didn't have so much value from him, because he was so much beyond what we were doing, and this was not helpful. But we have another investor that is very similar to the position that we are, and he have so much good advices for us, and this is good advice to always look for people that are very similar to you, because you will learn together more than if you, for example, talk with, I don't know, Google founders.
I think that's very, very sage advice, because it's it can be overwhelming at times for us when we're looking at Google founders, when we're looking at Uber founders and stuff like that. It's like, how did they make it and how did they do it? And I can never achieve that. But if we're looking at somebody who's maybe just 3 or 4 steps ahead of where we are today, no matter where you are in life or business, there's a mentor out there that you can find, or someone who can inspire you, who's just maybe 1 or 2 steps ahead of you, that can help guide you to your next path.
Yeah, that's definitely true. And I can tell you about another good rule to follow, to on-time learning. So, for example, when you learn something, for example, I'm now programming in PHP. So I'm now learning PHP right now. I don't learn PHP. I want using this knowledge soon. So, for example, right now I'm not managing people. I shouldn't learn about managing people, because this knowledge, I will read it and forget it. And it is important to, just in time time learning. So learn when you are using this knowledge, when you will be using this knowledge very soon. And this is very helpful for me. When I started to follow this rule, now I have a lot of books. I have over 200 books to read on my Goodreads profile, but I don't read them because I'm waiting for the perfect moment. For example, when I will be more a manager in the future, I will be then reading the books that I will be using. Because I found myself to reading a lot, but I didn't get the knowledge. I forget often what I read, I don't know, 2 weeks ago, and it was painful.
Yeah, I feel the same thing, man. I can't tell you how many things that we were supposed to memorize in school and learn in school back in grade school when it was not just-in-time learning. It was learn it for the sake of learning it or learn the process, and I've completely forgotten it. And then throughout my life, throughout my business, how many things, especially in entrepreneurship, oh my gosh, I studied so many different ways of search engine optimization and how to scale an affiliate business and all this kind of stuff that I was not actually practicing, I was not doing. And when I got to the point where I needed some of those skills, I knew a little bit. Like I knew that I had read it, and I knew that I had listened to podcasts, and I knew that I had some information, but I didn't know actually how to apply it because I wasn't using it just in time. So I think that what you just talked about there, that just in time learning is so critical, and many of us make mistakes where we're trying to over prepare for something that never occurs, never happens, and we're under preparing for the things that we need right now. You know?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. So I think everybody should make a profile on Goodreads to make a list of books to read when they need. And for example, use Buffer or get Packet to, for example, save articles to read later. So they can, make a knowledge base. And when they need the knowledge, they will just go to the software and see and read about the topic that they are doing right now.
I love that, man. It sounds like you're basically building an index, a help file for yourself for later, where you don't need all the content of the documents, all the chapters in the book. You just need to know where the material is, where the information is. And that way, when you come back to it, instead of just like, oh my gosh, I'm moving into management now. How do I manage a person? And go to Google and type, how do I manage a person, and search, right? Now you have articles that maybe you've seen, maybe you've peeked at, maybe you've scrolled through, skimmed through, but you have your own index of articles that really seemed relevant, and now you can go back and take a deeper dive look into.
Yeah, that's correct. And also I can, sometimes I read articles, maybe not an entire article, but some part, and it really resonates with me, so I can mark this with star or something in the software, so I know that this article is a good quality, and it's very easy later to read, to look back at the good articles.
So how about how much time do you spend reading these articles when you find that you need something, right? Let's say that I don't know, maybe you aren't doing management right now, people management, but when you go back in the future, maybe you hire your first employee. How much time will you spend kind of getting up to speed and going back through all of your old articles and old books and reading them again?
I will give you an example. For example, I will have soon a webinar about time management. So I wanted to make a presentation what I learned already, and also I wanted to read about the things that I read and was the most useful. So it was very quick process because I get about 20 articles about time management. I scanned them, read some of them, and I think it took me a couple of hours, and that's it. It was very quick, and I was having very good feeling because I was feeling that I was only reading the best articles I saved for later, and it made me sure that I will make good presentation because I will use only the best articles I found in years, because I'm making my personal knowledge base for about years, I'm using Evernote to make notes for different topics, and I know that I'm using the best knowledge that there is, because for about 6 years I grew pretty confident that a lot of good advices people give, they are pretty universal, and a lot of people are talking about the same universal principles. So when I read over and over about those things, I know I can know a lot, and I don't need to look in Google for other topics, because I feel confident that I have all the pieces of knowledge in my Evernote. So this is very good. Okay.
Yeah, I love the fact that you're actually using good time management practice in order to study how to get better at time management, right? So if you're creating the knowledge base of time management articles, and then you're going back through and you're putting metadata on them, you're clicking the star or the like button or thumbs up, rating them, and then when you come back later and you're given a presentation on time management, then you can use a good time management practice to skim through all of the articles to find the best information to present to people on how to be more better time management. So that's awesome there. So tell you what, Kamil, in just a moment, we'll come back and talk about the great work, speaking of time management, the great time management work that you're doing there at Timecamp. But first, we'll take a quick break and thank our sponsors. This episode of Hello Tech Pros is sponsored by you, the audience. Instead of looking for new corporate sponsors, I've decided to adopt a pay-per-value model. What that means is you decide on how much I get paid. If you're just browsing and have yet to get value out of the show, don't feel obligated to pay a darn thing. However, if this podcast does its intended job of helping you build your career, build your products, or build your business, consider becoming a sponsor on Patreon. Pick the level of recurring donation that matches the level of value you get out of this show, or make a one-time sponsorship for that big aha moment that have helped turn things around for you. Become a sponsor today at patreon.com/hellotechpros or visit hellotechpros.com/sponsor. Okay, we're back with Kamil Rudnicki. Kamil is a programmer, entrepreneur, founder of Timecamp. We've been talking to Kamil about, just-in-time learning, the mistake that many entrepreneurs, many software developers, many IT professionals make when we feel like we need to know it all, and we spend so much time studying and reading and listening to all the blogs and podcasts and books and things out there to try to get as much information on a particular topic or on our field and industry that we're working in as possible. And it can be overwhelming, it can be distracting, and it can actually be, in a lot of cases, just a complete waste of time. So, what Kamil's been telling us about is you need to have better time management practice to build a library, your own personal knowledge base of the best articles, the best material, the best podcast episodes that you need, and make bookmarks of those. Come back to them later when you need that episode, when you need that article, and then really study it when you're trying to solve a particular problem. So speaking of time and saving time, Kamil, you are the founder of Timecamp, and I took a look at your website. It looks like it's a time management application and a billing application. So tell us a little bit about that.
Timecamp can be used by individuals and companies. People can individually use Timecamp to track how they spend their time, and they can track how they spend their time in front of the computer. So for example, they can see how much time they spend on Facebook, or how much time they spend on, other application or sites they are using. And companies can also track how much time they spend on their projects, so they can know the profitability of the projects they are working on. So I can share you one funny stat about me, because I'm tracking time in Timecamp for about 6 years, and I can tell you that, can you guess what is the most common website that I was spending my time in front of the computer?
let's see, if you're writing software, because you said you're a PHP developer building Timecamp, for that, I'm going to guess that you're on Stack Overflow a lot.
Not correct. I can tell you that it's Gmail. I spent over 1,000 hours in front spending on responding to Gmail or other things. So communication with other people. I also have so much time in Skype, in Slack. So about 1/3 of my time is spent on communication, for example. And the second website that I spend the most time is Google Docs. So it's about writing the documentation, for example, or writing some documents for the company. It's 620 hours for the 6 years I was tracking in Timecamp.
So first of all, I guess when I think about it, that makes sense, right? That makes a lot of sense, both from the perspective of back when I was writing code and back when I was a software developer, as well as knowing as a manager, knowing the types of communication that I've had my employees to do, right? You're constantly talking to the clients, to other engineers, to the administrators on the servers. You're talking to other people in the industry. You're talking to your manager. You're constantly going back and forth on email, on chat, on all kinds of communication tools to just keep people aware of what's going on. And that's, it was kind of shocking at first, but then once you kind of started explaining the story, it makes sense that 1/3 of our professional lives as tech professionals, 1/3 of our time is spent in communication. It's spent in applications where we are communicating. So that seems like a big place where we need to spend the extra time in time management to get really, really effective with our communication, to make sure that we can actually have time at the end of the day to do some quote unquote real work, like writing code.
That's so true. Because if we spend most of our working time communicating, so we have to make this very efficient. To be honest, I never read good book about communication. Maybe someday someone will write a good book about communication, how to communicate efficiently in the company, because this is something that is taking people so much time. We are probably not aware that we spend so much time in communication, and I think nobody told us how to communicate in a good and meaningful way. We have to be better at things that we spend the most time on. So, for example, sleeping. I think that if we spend so much time in the bed, I think the quality of sleep is very important also.
Yeah, it's very true, right? Wherever we're spending our time, let's make sure that we're using that time to the most effective means possible. So, for instance, I'm a dad, and I have a 7-year-old daughter, and there have been times where I'm supposed to be playing with her at the park, right? Or I'm supposed to be listening to her reading a book. But every now and then, I have caught myself when I'm at the park, I'm looking at my cell phone. When I'm reading her a book or listening to her read a book, right, I'm thinking about that project or that meeting or that technology, right? That's not an effective use of my time because my area of interest, my focus is split between two different activities. When I'm with my daughter, I need to be with my daughter and be in that moment with her. Just the same as if I'm in a project and working on that project, I should be in the moment of working on that project and really focused on the communication with the individuals that I need to talk to about that project instead of kind of flipping around between all the tabs. And man, I don't know about you, but Slack can be really good, but it can also be like 99% of the time for me be a huge distractor because there's so many channels, there's so much conversation, there's so much non-productive time being invested into Slack that if I keep it open all day, I can find myself wasting hours and hours there just reading and commenting and joining the conversation. That's not productive work time.
Yeah, definitely. It's like having around you 10 people that are trying to say to you all the time. And it can be, I totally agree. I can tell you that I'm working right now to be better at managing my communication, because I feel the same problem, that there are too many people asking or wanting something from you, and how to disconnect. It's not easy, because I always try to, for example, check email once per day or answer Skype, I don't know, once per hour. But even this is very hard, because there is something in the back of your head saying that somebody probably wants something important for you, from you. You have to open email or open Skype or Slack. And, it can be very hard, but we must learn to cope with this, because it won't get easier, or it is very important to find a way to cure this disease, I think. Because for the internet, probably there was no such a problem, I think. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it is a trap many of us can get into. I've got into it many, many times, and it's really the culture of the organization that you belong to, and expectations, right, on different communication methods. And I have had managers talk to me about my communication methods, and I have had to have conversations with customers and other people in other departments about communication methods. For instance, if you send me an email and you get really, really angry because I haven't responded to it in 15 minutes, it's probably that whatever topic that you're discussing that you need a response in 15 minutes or less. You probably should have sent it in something other than an email, right? Or email in addition to a phone call, in addition to a text message, in addition to something else, right? But I think when I was growing up and when I was first learning email in corporations, it was this new instant communication mechanism that when you got an email, it's like, oh, cool, I got an email, I can respond to it right now. And that ability that I can respond to it right now, I can read it right now, that doesn't necessarily mean that I should, or that I have to read it right now, or that I have to respond to it right now. And I think what many people forget is that there are a lot of different ways to communicate, and you need to pick the right communication tool for the right message that needs to be conveyed.
Yeah, definitely. I agree 100%. And I can tell you one quick tip. For example, when I started using Asana as my to-do list, and I started sending my emails from Gmail to Asana as tasks. So my emails are tasks. And this is very helpful for managing my time, because I feel that all the things I have to do are in the one list in Asana, and I feel better because I don't feel overwhelmed by the things that I have to do, because I have one nice list in Asana that I make the priority for each task each day before I start the day, and it makes me feel good when I accomplish all the tasks from the day that I put.
Good, awesome. Well, we talked a little bit about the lessons that you learned about your hours that you saw in Timecamp as you tracked it. What have you heard back from your customers and your users about the biggest lessons that they've learned about their own time management that maybe you can share with our audience today?
Recently, one company was telling us that they learned that the employees spend most of the time using the Outlook. So it's communication. The communication is very often something that surprises companies, because they are not aware how much time employees are spending on communication. And this is one thing. Also, I can tell you that it's funny statistics that we slack on average about 30 minutes per day on Facebook or YouTube or some, sites like this. It's very common. It's about 30 minutes per day per employee. But I think it's okay. We don't have to think that this is very bad and something, because some free time is, I think, okay for the companies and for the employees to think about something else, not work. Because I also started to taking a break every hour. I have a small application in my computer, so it reminds me to have a break every hour, and I started to feeling better when I started taking 5-minute breaks every hour, for example.
Cool. Yeah, I absolutely agree that we need breaks. Like, we as humans need to divert our attention away from things every now and then. Stand up away from your desk, go for a walk, do a little stretch, give your eyes a break away from the computer, or give your brain away from the very, very difficult, intelligent work that we have to do all day as technical professionals. And that sometimes companies can be extremely particular about, blocking certain websites or making sure that everyone is running as productively as possible. And some people take it a little too far, right? They're like, oh, you can't have any fun here. We don't want you to ever have any fun because we're afraid that people may take advantage of the situation. But I say, look, you know what? If people are getting the job done, then let them get it done with the energy levels that best work for them. Let's not block all the websites and micromanage people like they're children, right? Let's treat professionals like they're adults. And as long as they're producing, as long as they're getting the job done, as long as they're constantly improving, and we're meeting our requirements, then for me, I am a little bit lax on that stuff. So I'll tell you what, speaking of time and time management and time tracking, I'm checking my clock here and it looks like we're just about out of time. Kamil, before we go, can you share any parting words of wisdom that you have for our audience, the best way that we can connect with you, and then we'll say goodbye.
Okay, sure. So about the wisdom, I think that I recently learned that how to prioritize my task, because I was very bad at prioritizing my task, because I had so much things to do, so many tasks, and I wanted to accomplish them all, and I sometimes was not doing a good job because I was doing tasks not so well, not in 100%. So now I say no to more things and yes to less things, and this makes things better. I think Steve Jobs have a very good quote: in your life you only get to do so many things, and right now we've chosen to do this, so let's make it great. So you have to choose one thing and make it great. I learned this lesson recently, and this is very helpful. Yeah, and about how you can contact me, you can go to my website, rudnicki.info, and send me an email. There is an email you can use. So I think that the URL will be in show notes, so you will know how to spell it. Okay.
Absolutely, Kamil. We'll have that. If you go to hellotechpros.com/264, so this is episode 264. Again, that's hellotechpros.com/264. You get access to the show notes page that includes all the links of the products and services we've been talking about today, including Kamil's email address, which is really long. We don't want to read it off here, and his websites. Kamil, thank you so much for joining me on Hello Tech Pros today. I really value this conversation about time management because I am guilty. I am very, very guilty of trying to be very highly productive and setting up systems and automation things in place, which is fantastic, and that's good, and that's productive. But then other times I find myself in those windows that are not prioritized productive windows that I need to be on my computer. And I find myself like, why am I doing this? Like, why am I once again like trying to edit this logo? Nobody cares about the logo. Nobody's complained about the logo. Why are you working on this? Quit tweaking on that and get back to work. Do the things that are important, not the things that are wasting time. So thank you for joining me and sharing that with us today.
Thanks a lot also. So have a nice day.
You're welcome. You too. Bye. Tech Pros, if you are struggling with time management, look, there's a ton of resources out there. And I've talked to so many people on this podcast and outside this podcast about how do you get more done? Like, how do you be more productive? How do you get things done? And really, to me, it all comes back to the end of the conversation that we just had with Kamil, and it comes down to prioritization, right? If you're trying to do everything, if you're trying to get everything done, then you're really getting nothing done. You're making a little bit of progress on a million different things, but you don't have a single thing that ever gets finished. So what's the one thing that's most important to you right now today, and do that? You don't need a checklist, right? You don't need to have your Asana board filled with 500 different things and scratch off 50 of them every day. No, just what's the one big thing, the one really important thing that you have to get done to move things forward in your business, in your career, in your life, whatever you're trying to improve. Get that done, and then tomorrow, reevaluate and move forward again. You've been listening to Kamil Rudnicki, and I'm Chad Bostic. And until next time, take care. The show notes page for this episode can be found at hellotechpros.com/264. Do you use Slack for team communication? Join the Hello Tech Pros Slack channel at hellotechpros.com/Slack. If this episode helped you out in any way, please leave a review on iTunes and let me know what you thought. iTunes reviews helps our rankings, which helps us grow the Hello Tech Pros podcast to a broader audience, which helps more technical professionals and techpreneurs build their career, build their products, and build their businesses. If you are a subscriber and get repeat value out of this show, consider becoming a sponsor on Patreon. The information on this podcast is free to everyone, but I'm giving you the opportunity to pay for the value you get out of it, starting as little as $1 a month. Pledge your support today at patreon.com/hellotechpros or visit hellotechpros.com/sponsor.